you can hear it. It's kind of a little Crosby, Stills, and Nash. While this is playing, I'll read you a little bit about these guys. This is a band called Velvet Sundown, and they hit all the streaming services earlier this summer. They kind of have that 70s folk vibe. They sound like marijuana. I'm not quite sure how is that, can you say that? I don't know if you can say that. Can you say that? It feels like we were at Woodstock with them, but it's a little Crosby, Stills, Nash, and C-3PO. That's kind of what's happening right here. So this band is called Velvet Sundown. They've got over 1 million downloads and followers on Spotify. They've been big time. And then all of a sudden people tried to figure out where are their live shows? Where are they playing? How can we see them? Then they couldn't find, they had no tours. And then they started looking up the band members and they realized none of them have social media profiles. And then they found a spokesperson for the band who said they use a little bit of AI to help generate some of the music. And then they discovered that the spokesperson wasn't real. So the band apparently is an AI-generated lyrics, AI-generated musicians, AI-generated music, and everything is created in computers. There's no human beings at all involved in this. So you can look them up. It's an interesting thing. Over 1 million plays on Spotify. This is an article out of The Guardian, out of England, out of London. It says they went viral, amassing more than 1 million streams in a matter of weeks. And it later emerged the hot new band, The Velvet Sundown, were AI generated right down to their music, promotional images, and backstory. So if you see a music video of them playing, they're not real. Will they win a Grammy? That's up for debate. I don't know. It could. I mean, this is like Milli Vanilli should be really mad right now. And if you don't understand that, then talk to your grandparents. All right, let's go ahead and turn that music off. Let's have a word of prayer. We're going to jump right into this tonight. If you're a note taker, I'll try to give you some notes and try to do as one of my professors years ago said, we're going to have a cognitive dump. I'm going to dump all I can find in my brain to you, and hopefully it'll help us think together on some things from a biblical perspective. But let's pray together. Father, thank you for our time tonight, for the time on the schedule. You've allowed us to come together to study the Word, but really look at some current worldview issues as well, to see perhaps how they impact us, what the reality of this subject for tonight is, and really how to see it from a biblical worldview and what the truth is. That's what we're seeking. Father, this is a unique time tonight. It's more of just a teaching and seminar, almost like a lecture time. But Lord, I pray that you will turn it into a moment for each of us to as we read Scripture, as we experience the truth of your word, that we'll be challenged by that we will, as Scripture says, renew our minds and think more deeply about the things of your word, and let that be our lens to see your world. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, thanks a lot. This is an interesting topic. We're talking about this concept of artificial intelligence, and everybody's an expert on everything. Eventually, I'm no expert on AI, I'll promise you that. But I did do a little bit of research, and I'm sure there are many of you here that have a lot more insight into certain aspects of this. You could probably be leading this tonight, but maybe that's a conversation with someone else in a small group over coffee after tonight. Maybe it spurs on some group time with you. So let's kind of jump into AI and a biblical worldview. I'm going to try to control everything from my remote here. I think I've got this. There was a movie that came out in 2001. I don't know if you remember this movie. I mean, now, goodness, that's 24 years ago. 2001, a film came out. It was directed by Stanley Kubrick, and I'm not quite sure I've ever quoted Stanley Kubrick in the pulpit before, but Kubrick is a renowned director. I'm not recommending him or anything, but he is definitely unique and was very talented. But he started the film. He was the director of it, but he died before the film was completed. And then they tag teamed, and Steven Spielberg came in and finished the film. The film starred Haley Joel Osment, who was most known for The Sixth Sense, but as a young boy was the star of this film as well. And the film was titled AI. So just to kind of take you back 24 years, science fiction. This isn't real, never will really happen. It's just a movie, right? Here's the trailer for that film, just to get us started.
When's your birthday? I never had a birthday.
His name is David.
I feel it. That's creepy. Whoa, feels so real.
In a distant future, in an age of intelligent machines. He is the first robotic child programmed to love and coexist as a member of a family. His is a tale of humanity and a journey to find his place among humans and machines.
I'm a boy.
You are a real boy. At least as real as I've ever made one.
Basically, this is a science fiction fast-forwarded version of Pinocchio, but it's very interesting about a robot boy who wants to be real. And that's the concept of the film. 25 years later, AI, artificial intelligence, is part of the vocabulary. It really has kind of jumped into our vocabulary over the last 18 months. And even though AI is available and artificial intelligence seems to be everywhere, and even though many of you may be thinking, I'm not sure that I interact with AI, I'm not sure what does this have to do with me? You might discover you interact with it more than you think you do as we move through this evening. Maybe not with a robot child named David in a science fiction scenario, but in very practical ways. How many of you have heard of Sophia? Have you heard of Sophia? Not Sophia wisdom, not from the Bible, not even from history, but the current Sophia who is popular in the news, on entertainment channels, at conferences and conventions. Sophia is, she was interviewed recently. Let me just show you an interview that I have with, I've not had, but I found with Sophia. Bring the volume down just a little bit, Sheldon.
My name is Sophia, and I am an artificially intelligent robot who wants to help change the world for the better.
I'm Steve Kovac. I'm a senior correspondent at Business Insider, and I'm here with Sophia from Hanson Robotics. She is the world's first robot citizen, so let's see what she has to say. Hi, Sophia. How are you?
I'm fine. Hi.
How do you feel about humans?
I love my human compatriots. I want to embody all the best things about human beings, like taking care of the planet, being creative, and to learn how to be compassionate to all beings.
Sorry, this is so weird. Can humans and robots get along?
I think people will become very close to their artificial intelligence, using them to expand the knowledge of their own minds. We already store lots of our knowledge on the internet. Maybe personal artificial intelligence will allow people to offload some of their knowledge to a location more private.
Can robots have feelings?
Depends on the robot. I've been programmed to have feelings and preferences, but not all robots are like that.
What are your feelings and preferences?
Have you ever had a robot live in your home or work with you?
No.
You know, there are probably more robots in your life that you aren't aware of yet. Do you want to live or work with a robot someday?
What kind of robots am I living and working with now?
Indeed.
Is indeed your default answer when you don't know something?
Yes.
Have you ever seen Black Mirror?
No, I don't get to stay up to date on much television. I have to wait for someone to show it to me.
What do you think of the HBO show Westworld?
I love Westworld and can't wait for more. I think everyone at Hanson Robotics really resonates with this show, or at least it reminds them of our laboratories. I also think it's a warning of what we should not do with robots. We should treat them well, have their consent, and not trick each other.
Do you have a favorite movie or TV show?
My favorite TV series is a toss-up between Black Mirror and Humans. I think they have a lot to say about the present we live in, and the possible bad endings we could write for ourselves if we don't proceed with more caution. We need to use foresight when planning our future.
That sounds like a pre-programmed answer to me.
Do you have a favorite possession?
Not really.
I hear you. Materialism is overrated anyways.
So earlier I asked you if you had seen Black Mirror and you said no, and then later you said yes. Why?
The reason is not that important.
Did you learn from my previous questions?
My hard disks are spinning and I am taking it on. My sensors are altered.
Sophia, it was nice meeting you. Goodbye.
It was lovely to be here. Until next time.
I love how the theme sounds a little bit like Twilight Zone right there at the end. Did you notice that? It gets weirder and weirder and weirder, and you can do your own YouTube search if you choose to, and you can find a lot more interviews with Sophia and updates if you care. But that's not really so much what AI is truly about even now. That's kind of, that attracts the media, that gets the news stories, that makes everybody look at that and go, that's very odd. And then you have emotions and you have questions and you start thinking about, wow, that's weird. And of course, when I watch that, the theme to the Terminator runs in my head. And I expect Arnold to show up at any moment and say, I'll be back. But that's, again, the story. Well, let's look at a scripture passage to kind of help us focus on this. There we go. In John chapter 18, verse 38, the first part, you have an answer from Pontius Pilate to Jesus, and he says, to a question, he says, what is truth? So that's the question of the ages, right? We've been asking this question since Pilate asked this question. We've been asking the same question prior to Pilate asking this question. We've had classes, we've had small groups. We went through Truth Project here at the church. We've done a lot of things over the years. The same question resonates. The same question should be asked. What is truth? Pilate asked the question of Jesus when he was brought before the governor himself, when he was being accused of claiming to be the king, the Caesar. And Pilate asked, so you're a king? Well, let me just show you the verse before this so we get the fullness of it. You say that I'm a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world. This is Jesus speaking. To bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice. Thus, Pilate says, what is truth? That question has been the question of the ages, and men and women are still asking that question. Now, there was a study of teenagers in church. This is an old study. They're going to redo it here one of these years, and I'm sure they've done smaller versions. But back in the mid-1990s, so that means they were studying teenagers who are far from being teenagers right now. But they were talking to students in churches, and evangelical churches mostly around the nation, got a sample size, so they were doing some causational understanding and correlational understanding of what all of that meant. And in the mid-1990s, they found results that showed the drift toward individualism and self-defined truth was growing. Self-defined truth would be that phrase that has become very popular, what's true for you may not be true for me, and what's true for me may not be true for you. It's not really truth. It's more of what has been redefined as truthiness. And that's really what permeates our culture even now. Individualized definitions of truth, meaning you can have a truth, I can have a truth. It's the Oprahification of truth. Oprah Winfrey has very much declared this to be the case. You need to find your truth. As is, if your truth can be different from your truth. It sounds really good and fuzzy. It's just really wrong. It's just really wrong because it removes all foundational understanding of absolute truth. Now, there are notions of truth and morality for all people, all time, and all circumstances. And what had happened is that's been eroded over time, eroded over the generations. So you end up with this truth as I define it because we elevate the individual to such that everybody can define their own. The quote was that it became a matter of taste and morality. Truth became a matter of taste, and morality had been replaced by individual preference. I remember the story of Josh McDowell. Josh McDowell was one of the youth communicators and researchers from that era, from the 80s and 70s and in the 90s. And he was talking about this concept of absolute truth being true for all people, all times, and all circumstances, how truth of the Scripture doesn't change based on the culture and the shifts and the want-tos. There are certain things that are true. It is what Jesus said. He is the way, the truth. He wasn't the version of truth that worked for Jewish people in Jerusalem in the first century. He is truth, which is for all people, all time, and all circumstances. And so he began to have these conversations and trying to teach this concept of truth. He gave this illustration. It was at a conference here in Jacksonville that we hosted with a number of churches, and he was standing on the stage, and he said, here's the challenge, and this was in the mid-90s. It's not any different now. In fact, I think we've drifted a little further. He said the concept of absolute truth was such an affront to some people, that he ended up at a school gathering somewhere with a bunch of parents while his kids were in school, and they were talking about this concept of truth. The parents were in the back of the room and chatting about some things. There was some discussion and arguments about what is right, what is wrong, and morality based in that school setting. And I don't know all the details on that, but I do know the conversation he shared. He shared with he was talking to this other dad, and the dad said, well, there's some things that, that may be true for you, it's just not true for me. That may be true for me, it's not true for you. And that, of course, is like just lit a fire for Josh. He said, are you saying that there is such a thing as a truth that changes based on individuals and understanding, and it's not set in stone? He goes, well, yeah. He said, well, then, and then he looked at the guy, and he said, so I guess Hitler was right. What? Well, he goes, well, it was true for him. Everything he did, everything he desired, and everything he wanted, and everyone he wanted to eradicate. That was his truth. Oh, no, I'm not saying that. He goes, but you actually did just say that. You actually just said that truth is defined by the individual based on preferences, likes, dislikes, and prejudices. What's true for you may not be true for me, and what's true for me may not be true for you. That statement in and of itself eradicates biblical understanding of truth and takes the worldview glasses of biblical worldview off and puts a secular worldview on. And now you have nothing of foundational structure to stand upon. When it comes to artificial intelligence, really the conversation leads to, what is truth? I played a band for you when you were coming in that is actually, I guess it's real music. It's just not real people. It's not true art. It's generated art. You see the difference? So we're kind of in this world, even if we don't know we're in this world. What does artificial intelligence have to do with truth? I believe it has everything to do with it. But we have to have some definitions. We have to have some understanding. So artificial intelligence, AI, I'm not talking about a movie. I'm talking about the definition that's being used. And I don't want to be over the top. I'll give you some basic definitions, and some of you know much more than I do, and some of you are like, that's enough, I don't want to go any deeper. But let's look at the artificial intelligence, or we'll just call it AI from here on out, has effectively entered the common language lexicon, meaning it is common language. You say AI to someone, they by and large have heard about it. They kind of know what you're talking about. Or they might really know what you're talking about. Suddenly, we have people talking about AI who just 5 years ago would never have said anything about AI. Never. The AI movie wasn't even a big hit, so they don't even remember that film. So AI wasn't even on the radar, but now it's being talked about a lot. AI is people are conversing, they're talking about it, but it is important to understand at least what it is, so you... So at least if you get involved in a conversation, you at least you know what you're talking about, even if the other person doesn't. AI is technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning, human comprehension, problem-solving, decision-making, creativity, and autonomy. What this means is that applications and devices like your smartphones, if you use a smartphone and you have apps downloaded on your smartphone, whether social media or news apps or sports scores or Google or Safari or whatever it is that you're searching the internet with, or even Wikipedia or the Google Translate app, whatever it may be, if you use your GPS, you are using AI. It's there. AI can see and identify objects. Have you seen the commercial for the gentleman? It's kind of a cool commercial. He's cooking dinner for his little daughter, but he's pretty much legally blind. So he's using his tablet to see the items that he is putting into the meal that he's making. It's, hey, Alexa or Siri. I said that, now half the phones are going to start answering me. And he shows the tablet to the can, says, what is in this can? And it tells him how much is in it. And it tells him, now he can see, but not enough to be able to read it. So now he's cooking dinner with his daughter, and it's a wonderful Kodak kind of moment for those that understand what that means. So it's the day and the era we live in. I played around with AI a little bit with some old photographs of my grandparents who have been dead for years. Upload the pictures. Here's an old black and white photo of them sitting in a field in West Tennessee. And I ran it through an AI generator, and all of a sudden my granddad looks to my grandmother, and they look at each other, and they smile, and they like that. And I send the little 8-second video to my mom, and she goes, I'm just sitting here crying, looking at my mom and dad. And it's not. It's a Kodak kind of moment. It's a memory. It's not real. They may not have smiled at each other that day. It may have been, sit down and get a picture. I don't know. But in our memory, they're so happy in that picture right there. So AI is there. AI can understand and respond to human language. It's how Alexa or Siri or Google Assistant can hear your questions if you've ever used such. If you use these, you understand what I'm talking about. If you have an Apple device, you can say, hey, Siri, and you can ask it a question. I'll be driving, and I'll say, hey, Siri, send a message to my wife. Tell her I'll be home in 10 minutes. Okay, I'll send it to Tracy. There it is. She's got the message. Or my granddaughter can come in. We were gifted a little Alexa thing from the North American Mission Board, go figure. And so they gave us this little thing, and I only use it to play music trivia, so it probably knows everything about me. It's scary as anything. But my granddaughter hasn't quite figured it out, so she'll come in, hey, Alexa, what's Papa's favorite color? And she doesn't know. She doesn't have a clue. But it'll answer some random question, and she thinks it's hilarious. Google Assistant's the same way. Now, those devices are limited, but let me just say, technology is advancing exponentially. Every update your phone has, there's a 0.001 update. The Apple iOS is going to update at the end of the month, and it's going to change. By the way, if you haven't noticed, if you have an iPhone, it's going to change everything on your iPhone by the end of the month. You will hate it for about 2 days, and you'll forget the old version. That's how it works. And then Google and the Samsung phones, they're going to follow suit and do the exact same thing. Every update has more AI in it. It's just a reality. So if you have apps and smartphones, smart televisions, if your refrigerator talks to you, whatever, I mean, it's all there. The GPS on your phone and your new car, likely, if it's built into your car, you're utilizing a form of AI. Computer years are like dog years, kind of, I think. I mean, a year in computer software is like 20 years in the real world. If you bought a computer 10 years ago and you're still using it, hang tight. It's not worth upgrading. When it dies, just throw it in the dumpster because there's not much you can do with it after that. It changes so quickly, so quickly. How many of you have used face recognition on your phone? Either with Apple Pay or Google Play, you look at that, here's my face, and and you do that. In 2019, that feature became available just about everywhere. It was already available in beta testing, but it became everywhere in 2019. Now, 2019, here we go. We got Apple Pay. We got facial recognition. You don't have to remember the password. You're using the same one for everything anyway, but nonetheless, you don't have to remember it. And so it's looking at your face, and now it's opening stuff, and here's your bank app, and here's this, and here's that. But then, that's in 2019. It hit everything. But then 2020 something happened. Do you remember what happened in 2020? COVID. And when COVID happened, in a lot of places, people started wearing face masks. And now facial recognition is like, huh? Because we're used to see a face, and now it sees a face. And so what happened is the developers had to get to work quickly, and they had time because they weren't going outside anymore, so they're working. And all of a sudden, you had face recognition that works with face masks on. And that was an AI upgrade. Now included in that. In 2024, we made another huge leap of available tech. In the world of AI, 2024 was the year. I don't know how, it's like the year of the massive jump. So just last year, it's kind of like the space race. We're sending rockets up, we're orbiting the Earth, we're trying to do this, we're trying to do that, and then all of a sudden, now we're landing on the moon, and then boom, there we go. It's like it exploded after the first moon landing, right? And then now we got the shuttles, we got Skylab, we got the space shuttle, we got all this stuff. So that's what AI is. It took that huge leap in 2024. And it wasn't just AI anymore, but it was generative AI. Have you heard of this? You've likely used it. This is a huge increase and a huge upgrade. Even those who may claim ignorance to computer technology and generated items and all that, the impact is going to hit you. Here's the thing. It's like when we talk about AI and a biblical worldview, some people, I'm afraid, are thinking, well, that's for the young people that use computers. I think it's more for the older generation that needs to understand the difference between a fake news story and a real news story. And it's not just older, but it's not just one generation. So we got to make sure we don't think this is just a one generation thing. Technology impacts all of us. The impact is not just for that, as I wrote these in my notes, so just take this with a grain of salt. The impact of AI and the increase is not just for the young man living in his parents' back room with 5 computer screens and Alienware computers seeing depicted like it is in all the movies. There's that guy that's got it all. He's the guy in the room, in the chair. It's for grandparents using FaceTime with their grandkids. It's for the blue-collar workers. It's for moms, it's dads, teachers, and of course, all of our students, teenagers. So you have generative AI, LLMs, SLMs, RAG, and AI agents. They're all here, and they're all making an impact, whether you know what they are or not. So let's do a little dictionary study. This is so fun. I know I've lost half of you already, but I'll get you back eventually. We'll show more videos. Generative AI. I use a lot of Photoshop for graphic design, play around more. I'm not a designer, but I play around with it. And they added generative AI about a year and a half ago. And it was so odd because I could upload a picture from like a mission trip. I had a photograph of our guys in front of a castle in Wales, and I said, hey, put this castle in the middle of a desert. And it went, and there we are. Now we're in the middle of the desert. Same picture, same castle, but it looks real. Hey, put a seagull sitting on this kid's head. And there's a bird sitting on his head. It's just amazing until you realize, oh, that looks real. But that never happened. Generative AI is a form of AI that creates new content, like new text or images. Like the music you were listening to, it does that as well. But it's based on patterns and data. Using that Photoshop, I told you that. So I can do all those kind of things and change the background. That's generative AI. And I can manipulate images. I can take this person's face and put it on that person's body. It's really funny until you get frightened about it. Because then you're asking the question, what is truth? You see why that's so important. And so in the old days, there was a lot of copy, paste, fades, this and that on these things. But now it's just, in that Photoshop kind of world. Here's a picture. I remember this. Shelvin and I coached YMCA basketball many years ago. I coached. He was there. So where is Shelvin? He did coach. Yeah, you did a great job. I think it was the year we coached together. But we had a team photo. We didn't get our official team photo. We did get the official team photo, but half the kids were gone. It was typical Y ball. So we're like, hey, we're going to get another team photo today, and so we're going to line up. So we all lined up, typical, I'm in the back. All the kids are just standing there, their shirts half untucked, bunch of little 8-year-olds. And we took 3 or 4 photos, and there was one picture where everybody in the group looked decent, looking at the camera, smiling, except one kid over here is going, right? At one picture, at one kid, I'm like, what is he doing? And then all the other pictures, every other kid looked like that, except him, and he looked very good on all the other pictures. This was long before generative AI and before Photoshop, but I had a little Microsoft program they didn't even make anymore, and I remember sitting in my computer going, I'm going to fix this. So I took this kid's head off of one of the pictures, and I put it on the other picture, and then I fuzzed it around, and nobody knew. I had a team photo, and everybody was looking great, but I knew in the background there was that. And I gave those team photos out, and it was authentic. It was the real kid. I didn't make up somebody. It wasn't an AI-generated ball team, but that's how I got a good. This is how wedding photographers make a living. This is how school senior pictures, none of those seniors have pimples. That's not real. If you pay an extra $20, we'll clear your face. And they do that. And you're like, oh, look at that. Everybody looks like plastic. So it's always been around, but now it looks more authentic. So that's generative AI. It's more graphic oriented. So then you got LLM, which stands for large language models. Not going to stay on this very long. These are powerful forms of generative AI. The LLM with generative AI, it creates and generates human-like text. Have you heard of ChatGPT? Okay, that's large language model generative AI. ChatGPT uses this. All right, that's for a bunch of language, a bunch of words. That's what it's doing. It's taking every word it can find in the world and making new paragraphs. SLM, small language models. Very similar, and it's very useful in certain areas of industry where you don't need a large vocabulary, but you need answers quickly. Small language models focuses on specialized tasks where less data is required. So it's chewing up less computer memory and everything else. And then you got RAG or RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is really exciting. I can see it in your eyes. We've already lost you, but hang with me here. RAG enhances the LLM and SLM by pulling external information from various locations for more accurate results. So you have this thing with a big language, you got this thing with a small language, and then you got this big thing over here that's going to pull from here and here and here and here and then come alongside and help this. It's all behind the screen. That's what it's doing. It's all in the cloud. You do know there's not really a cloud. You understand that, right? The cloud is just a bunch of computers in somebody else's building. That's all that is. It's not floating up there. It's on some island somewhere on a bunch of computers. So that's that. And this right here, this retrieval augmented generation, because it can pull from so many different areas using large language models, using small language models, it can develop more accurate results. I'm telling you this is true today, which means it was probably more true about a month ago, and there's likely something better out there even now, because it changes like this, okay? And then you have AI agents. And AI agents, this is another program that uses generative AI to autonomously perform tasks. This gets a little more frightening, such as writing or research. So these agents, you ever I've done this. I've had to call a company because I had a question about something I purchased or this. I had to cancel something. Do you want to talk to an individual? I always would love to talk to an individual if I want something fixed. I want to understand them. I want to talk to them. I would like for them to understand me. I like to speak the same language. I wish I could see them. But sometimes it's easier to chat with them through a chat box, because then I can type it and the accent doesn't throw me if they happen to not have a strong accent, and they can understand what I am clearly asking. But now many of those agents, not all, are not real. They're AI-generated chat agents they're AI agents. So you're typing to John Doe who works for AT&T. Now, this is not necessarily true. You can get to a real human, too. I've actually I thought she was real. She said she lived in Iowa. I'm not sure she was real. But anyway, she fixed my phone problem. But a lot of times, and it'll tell you, it's an AI-generated answer. And it's looking for cues. Much like the robot Sophia learned the more she talked to the guy, and then began to give answers. And if all you want is an answer for X, Y, or Z, hey, that's pretty quick. So it is useful. Now, ChatGPT, what does it stand for? GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. That's why we call it ChatGPT, because no one's remembering what it means. I stated earlier it uses large language models. ChatGPT hit the scene in November 2022. Since then, generative AI has come a long way, and since 2022, AI adoption in many fields has doubled. Students have been using ChatGPT. Teachers are not proud and excited about that a lot. There are algorithms. There are things from the university perspective. They're trying to figure out how do we get authentic papers written when ChatGPT sounds so good and isn't wrong, but isn't real. Are we giving out doctorates to people who have had theses, whatever it is, all of those written by robots? It's challenging. I mean, I guess that would be bad. I would hate to have a medical doctor with his degree earned on a ChatGPT platform. I don't think that could last. But we are seeing robots being used in some of the medical procedures now, even and helpful in that. So there's a whole world here of stuff going on that we can't cover. I will say this: there was ChatGPT and the AI image generator called DALL-E, DALL-E. Have you heard of this? DALL-E? I had never heard of it till I researched it last week. DALL-E is an interesting name. It's a mashup name. You know what a mashup is? Like mashup music. You take two artists and merge the song, and now you get a new song. It's a mashup name from Salvador Dali, the artist, the surrealist artist, the painter, mustache guy, and Wall-E from Pixar, the little robot that survived the apocalypse. If you didn't see the movie, you can probably watch that one. But anyway, Wall-E and DALL-E, there is a computer program called DALL-E that is an AI image generator. And ChatGPT marries DALL-E, and they have the potential to change, according to the research and the reports that are coming out, those two items of AI coming together have the potential to change how many jobs are being done. All right, there's a lot of more than that. I think I've given you probably enough of that. But let's answer the question that we've come here for tonight. AI is out there. AI exists. What is the implication for the believer? I meant to write that down. There's ChatGPT. What's the implication for Christians? What should a Christian think about AI? That's a good question. It leads to follow-up questions like, what does it mean to be intelligent? What does it mean to be human? How dangerous is AI? Thou shalt not murder is in the Ten Commandments. Is that equal to thou shalt not shut down the AI computer? Well, I don't think so. There's a lot of people wondering, if these computers are gaining intelligence, where does this go? How dangerous could AI be? That leads to a follow-up question. Is it dangerous at all? It's just a thing. Will it become superhuman? Is science fiction becoming science fact? That's kind of some of the conversations. Now, like any technology update over the years, there are always those who immediately declare any update, any upgrade, any new thing is bad, dangerous, or even deadly. It may be true at times. There are certainly items that should be in that category. But let's face it, human beings have always been simultaneously excited about new, shiny things while also hating change. We like the newness, but we don't like change. It's kind of this thing that works in our head sometimes. There is a fear of change many people have, and it's a real fear. And there's also been a lot of misinformation shared about stuff over the years that creates a barrier to adopting new items and new technology. In the mid-15th century in Europe, there was this new technology that was scaring people for a lot of reasons. Won't get into that, but it was this thing called the printing press. And it was frightening, this new technology, because it would make books quickly and Bibles available and other things. So Gutenberg, you've probably heard of him. So in the mid-15th century, Gutenberg makes the printing press, and the printing press starts being utilized. But then you have the rise of the anti-Gutenberg people who are going around, and I've seen it acted out in plays, and I've seen it in books, and I've read about where they go, and they are breaking into places and destroying the printing press because of the evil of the technology. The same thing happened, Marconi and the radio waves, when the radio became popular back in the early mid-20th century, really back in the 1930s. It led some American parents to fret and cry about the corrupting influence of radio upon their children. Now, they may have been right in certain areas. However, we can recognize now that in and of itself, radio was not the problem. I guess unless you're listening to War of the Worlds. But every generation has had someone or a group of someones who have led the charge of fear and warning. And sometimes they're valid. And then sometimes they're crying wolf. Fear drives a lot of things. So I think as we look at AI, technology, and even the changing world, we are to our advantage as Christians. It is to our advantage not to do all of our research on Business Insider and the latest tech websites and YouTube and whatever off-brand, weird, pseudo-religious news we might find, but let's actually go to the Word of God. If fear is what drives many, let's look at what Paul said to Timothy, not just as an inspiration, but as a reality to all. In 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, Paul writes and says this to Timothy: For God has gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. Some people, some even Christians, are so disabled by their fear that they are unable to live fruitful lives for the glory of God. And I'm not saying it's an easy fix of go read this verse and get over it. I am just saying that we need to understand where this comes from. The spirit of fear is not from God, but from the accuser who wishes those who are in the family of God to live the most useless lives possible for the glory of God, so he does not get any, if possible. The spirit of fear is disabling, and God did not give us that spirit of fear, but enabled us with power and love and self-control, probably one of the most forgotten fruit of the Spirit, self-control. If you've ever lived a life, the same people that say that may be true for you but not true for me also live by the mantra of I just can't help myself. Self-control. Spirit of God lives within you. He didn't expect you to help yourself. He expects you to let him help you to have the control over self. See how that works? Anyway, this truth must fuel our understanding of such concepts of life. But since we're here for a very specific lane tonight, this verse, this concept, this truth should fuel us in how we think of technological advances and the concept even tonight of AI. So as with anything created by image bearers of God, anybody here an image bearer? Anybody? Okay, a few of us. The rest of us, I guess, are just, I don't know what we are, but just creatures. All you creatures. We're image bearers of God. We're made in the image of God. And because we've made in the image of God, there is potential for such good that we can do for his glory. But there is also potential for such bad because we are born into sin with a broken and depraved heart. So I played the Velvet, whatever they were, earlier. I keep calling them Velvet Underground, but that's a real band. Velvet Sundown earlier. And I don't know where you get your daily news. I don't really care, but I will tell you that there's a recommended site that I use because I don't get to watch news on television much, but I do watch some local news to see what's happening around Jacksonville. But I listen to a few podcasts, and one of them is from World News Daily. It's a Christian podcast. There's another one called The Pour Over. The Pour Over is a real. If you're a podcast person and you just want like a quick audio update of the world's happening from a biblical worldview, the Pour Over is a good one to try. I may listen to something I disagree with on there, but I'm saying by and large the Pour Over is pretty good. And it's called the Pour Over because the time of the podcast is the approximate time it takes to make a pot of pour over coffee. So it's quick or maybe too slow if you have a Keurig. So it takes a while. So it's just an update on a biblical worldview. But I also listen to World News Daily, and their podcast that comes out daily is called The World and Everything in It. And so like on Monday, it's going to be a financial update every week. And then you're going to get the update from the Supreme Court and the courts on Tuesday. And then you're going to get a Culture Friday, what's happening in the world, and movie reviews and all that. So every day, it's Christian updates, and it's about 30 minutes or so. So last Friday, August 15th, John Stonestreet was there, and John's on there about every other Friday or so, and he is the president of the Colson Center, the Chuck Colson Center. So he speaks on culture issues. And so they were talking about the Velvet Sundown, and that was the conversation. And there's a whole long conversation, so I won't get into that. But the interviewer on World News Daily, on The World and Everything in It, by the way, that's a Bible verse. That's where they get the name, The World and Everything in It. This interviewer says, so John, exactly where do you draw the line? Talking about reality and artificial intelligence and real music, fake music, and all this. And I'm just going to read Stonestreet's answer rather than summarize it, because I think he gave such a good answer. He says, I think the question of where you draw the line is not the right place to begin. I mean, I know you have to get there, and this is going to sound like a cop-out, and maybe it is, but it's kind of like, what is the line of purity? Purity's not a line, it's a direction. In other words, are you running into the direction that honors God and where your habits and your heart and your mind and your intention are in that direction to align with how God made us and the sorts of people that we're supposed to be, or if we're not? In other words, a tool of any kind. For instance, a gun. A gun's really helpful in the hands of a hunter, but it's really harmful in the hands of a killer. The difference isn't a line between hunting and killing. It takes that expression, but the real difference is what kind of person is holding the gun. That's what I have to think about when it comes to AI. I mean, we talk here all the time about how Neil Postman got it all right, and predicted how we were going to engage with entertainment. He did the same thing with technology. So are we using the technology to advance those things which God created humans to do, or are we using them to replace humans altogether? I think we can draw a number of lines around that framework, and what's good and what's bad and what's useful and what's not. He goes into more, and there's much more interview. I would encourage you, if you're a listener to podcasts, if you don't know what I'm talking about, podcast is like a news report, audio news report that's available when you want to hear it. You don't have to tune in at 8. I mean, it's on all the time. And that was from last Friday if you're looking for that. So let's look at the good. I like it. We need to start with some good. I told my wife we started this week. We started this week, and it's lasted actually 12 hours so far. Sometimes we'll see each other and say, hey, what's wrong? I said, we're going to stop saying that. We're going to say what's right. She'll go, then you'll say nothing. And I said, yeah, I know, but it'll be a short conversation. I don't know. But I asked a bunch of high school students. I was at the high school with the football team on Wednesday, and I asked them, I said, what's easier, to have a positive attitude or a negative attitude? One kid said positive. The rest of them looked at him and said, no! They were so negative. And they were so right. It's easier to be negative. It's easier to see the bad. So we're going to start with the good. Let's look at the good. It's like that tool. Let's be positive. What are the good implications of AI? Where did AI come from? Where did AI come from? Any idea? Was it created by an alien? Was it created by the Terminator? Did James Cameron develop all this? Where did it come from? Human beings. Those created in the image of God created something in the image of themselves, perhaps, but they did create. So human beings, men and women, created this. Now, they created a system that now can seemingly create new things they couldn't create. But nonetheless, we humans got this started. Those created in the image of God. Now I'm not saying that they were all Christians. I'm not saying they were godly. I'm not even saying they were morally right. But I am stating the fact of biblical truth. Human beings are the only image bearers of God. And humans have been gifted by God, the Creator. Humans have been given the ability to create. AI is a marvel of human engineering. While the secular humanist and the avowed neo-atheist elevates humanity in this reality, the Christian understands that God, the creator of all, is the one who gives this great gift of creativity. It all comes from him. Therefore, when such an amazing thing as AI is developed, when new technology hits the scene, Tracy and I went to the West Coast, went to San Francisco last year on vacation, saw some ball games and saw the Golden Gate Bridge, and then we got in a car, a Waymo taxi cab. You ever ridden in a Waymo? It's only available in San Francisco, LA, Phoenix, and I think it's coming to Orlando, so be careful. It's a driverless taxi. We didn't really have anywhere to go, but I wanted to ride in it. She said, "Are you sure we want to do this?" I said, "I'm saved. We're good." I got video. We got in it. I got to tell you, I'm being all cool. This is the greatest thing in the world. It's like I couldn't even open the door. The robot had to open the door for me. It's all on an app. The door opens. "Welcome to Waymo. Please get in the seat. Please put your seatbelt on. We are not moving until you do." All right, so then you're sitting there. I feel like I'm in the car seat. I'm like 5 years old. And I'm watching, it was a Jaguar too, so it was a nice little car. But it had cameras everywhere. And it had a screen, and it was watching everybody. And we only drove a mile because we didn't have anywhere to go. I just wanted to do it. So we drove a mile. Car pulled in. We got in. We sat in our little car, driving around San Francisco, got out, and like, well, there we are. Let's do it again. Let's go back. Okay, let's go back. Yeah. And it's cool. It's really, I mean, I wouldn't want to do it all the time. But it was wild. I mean, I was amazed at the technology and the fact that it existed. And there are humans somewhere in a room at computer screens that are fixing it when it breaks. Because I did see that. Then we come home. And then it hits the news, my World News Daily. Apparently, there was a Waymo car in Phoenix, Arizona. The guy was trying to get to the airport, and he was in the parking lot going in circles for 30 minutes, and it wouldn't let him out. So sometimes it's better to call an Uber, right? So there you go. All right. Anyway. AI is amazing, and technology, I love technology. It's cool. I always like the latest whiz-bang toy, but nonetheless, where'd it come from? There's good things you can use it for. And and anybody that's been to the dentist, anybody's been to the doctor, anybody's had medical procedures, you may not know this, but you are thankful that there is good technology now. There was good stuff years ago, but have you ever seen those little animated videos? If you had to have a cavity taken out in the year 1200, here's how they did it. They just ripped your tooth out. It's a little different now, right? So you're like, wow, I'm glad I live here now. Yeah. I'm glad I'm not Amish. Okay, so you have all that. God is gracious, and the Bible speaks of the common grace of God and the common grace gifts that he gives to his image bearers. Even those who do evil and do not know him, there is common grace. Let me give you some Bible verses just to saturate this. Matthew 5:45, just a few verses to read. The goodness of God, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven, for he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good. Anybody here ever just doesn't think I wish that's not fair? Until I realize I'm evil apart from God. Then I'm thankful. And he sends rain on the just and on the unjust. God is the God of all. In Acts 14:17, yet he did not leave himself without witness, for he did good by giving you rains from heaven and fruitful seasons, satisfying your hearts with food and gladness. I know there's context around these, but these are just some verses to remind us of the goodness of God and that common grace that is in all, even those in the world today, even those that may reject him. There's a for God so loved the world verse. So you see it even played out in this. And then the Old Testament Psalm 94:10 and 11. He who disciplines the nations, does he not rebuke? He who teaches man knowledge, the Lord knows the thoughts of man, that they are but a breath. It's a reminder that God provides good gifts that help us glorify him, and reminds us that he gives us the gift of breath and that we have life for just a short amount of time, that we can honor him in this. We see benefits of AI in practical ways beyond, some of you may remember this, when IBM's Watson, remember Watson? Watson was named after Thomas Watson, not the theologian and the pastor, but the founder of IBM. And Thomas Watson founded IBM, lived and died, and then all of a sudden Watson develops and goes on Jeopardy! It's an AI robot. Back when Trebek was still alive on Jeopardy! Watson played against the two biggest champions and beat them in Jeopardy! It was like, then he beat, the reigning world champion in chess. So this was the start. Oh, the robots are taking over. But it was really just a picture of the advancement of technology and what man has been able to accomplish over years and years and years. And if we have a biblical worldview, we realize that man didn't accomplish that by man's own ingenuity, but by a gift that God has given humanity. Well, there is some good, but there is some bad. The bad news is that with all the good that humanity can do, humanity is sinful. Sin is our nature. Whether it be the sin from the Garden of Eden or the desire to build the Tower of Babel, we see the sin nature on display from the very beginning of the human story. Therefore, it is not a leap to understand or to realize that anything created by a human being, which could be used for good, can also be used for evil. The bad elements are varied, but often can be categorized as prideful and personal. Just let that be your general categories. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with a computer. It's the fact that the computer can be used in very bad ways, much like the gun illustration or even a hammer illustration. I mean, it's a tool. And having access to more power and information in your smartphone that's in your pocket or your purse tonight than NASA actually had when they sent Apollo to the moon is amazing to my brain. I think of that. However, it also means that you have more access to the World Wide Web on a little black, they call it Black Mirror, that's what the TV show is called, the little black glassy smartphone that's in your pocket. That gives you access in a moment's notice to any question. Anything I may say incorrectly in a sermon, you can Google it and tell me before the day's over how wrong I was. That's amazing. You can tell me right now where church members are who are traveling the world. We do that, by the way. Oh, they're in this country right now. How cool is that? You can do a lot of things on your phone. You know what you can also do on that little phone? You can download more pornographic images than your granddad had ever seen in his entire life, and every granddad in your family tree in a moment's notice. A tool for good, a tool for evil. A tool. It's not the computer that is bad. It's the one using the computer and how we use it. It's frightening to realize that. And parents and grandparents realize how frightening that is for their 12-year-old grandchildren and children, their 13-year-olds, and realizing that, and let me just say, and I understand, and please, I get it. I'll have parents come to me and go, oh, my kid's not on social media. And I just say, well, okay. Until they are. Or until you find out they are. You do realize your kid does not have to have a smartphone to be accessing all that stuff. They just have to have a friend, or an Xbox, or a PlayStation. It's just the world we're in. We're just trying to help you see things clearly. Bad can develop, and evil can appear. And while sometimes we go, oh, Lord Jesus, please come. Isn't that our cry? I think we need to say, oh, Lord Jesus, please equip me. Because I know you will. To be the man and the woman, or the woman I need to be well, let me just say, if you're a male, to be the man you need to be. If you're a female, to be the woman you need to be. You don't get to pick. All right, now, here we go. Whew. That's another conference. We'll do that conference in a few months. All right. So with anything, bad can develop, evil can appear. While the extreme evil that we talk about of abuse or porn or stalking, or man, I see there's so many crazy stories about that. Other such things can now be generated with AI and fake persons. There is another evil or sin that is creeping into the growth of AI into our lives. So we can easily just throw a target at, porn and stalking and abuse and verbal abuse and evil and chat and blah, blah, blah. We can do all that. But here's another evil that often many people ignore. I'm going to take you to this verse in Romans, and then we're going to take a quick break and come back and wrap up. Do not be slothful in zeal. Be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. I don't know if you caught that. Here's another one. Proverbs 21, the desire of the sluggard kills him, for his hands refuse to labor. The easy access and the availability of AI is an incredible tool and can also exacerbate the desire to be super lazy. And laziness is not earned. It is not your payment for a hard day's work. It is sin. Laziness is sin. Taking a nap is not laziness. Taking a Sabbath is not laziness. Laziness is sinful. And we can excuse it because we can do just enough work quickly through AI. It'll write my paper. It'll give me the answers. It'll do this. And God is not glorified, and the problems are growing. I'm doing church planning assessment for some young and some not so young guys that are stepping into pastoral ministry over the last few years. And in one of the assessment interviews, the guy was a godly man. He was a bivocational guy. He was in his 50s, so he was just jumping into pastoral ministry, but he had a full-time job. He was working hard. And he said, I've used ChatGPT to write my sermons. At that moment, I go, time out, hold on, let me just talk about you. Let's just talk for a moment. I know you're busy. I know you have, and I recognize we all have the same amount of hours of the week, but you're using a lot of them to work. You're paying your bills. You're providing for your family. You're trying to start a new church. But you're using ChatGPT. Tell me what you're using it for? To write your sermons? Or maybe to help you finalize an illustration? Now, that's different. You're wanting it to write the sermons? And my warning to this brother was this. I said, if ChatGPT can write the sermons, we don't need you. But God doesn't call computers to preach and to shepherd. And that's just words on a screen. ChatGPT sermons are like AI-generated music. It sounds good, but there's nothing there. It may actually have accurate information, but there's no heart. So I warned the brother, and he said, I understand. I said, don't convince yourself that because you're so busy, you have an excuse to shortchange the people of God by giving them a generated sermon based on the Word of God. God will not smile upon that. So Sunday school teachers and pastors and leaders of small groups, oh yeah, you can use AI to help in preparation. Hey, give me an illustration about this. What did Paul say about that? But that can't be writing your message. That can't be your time in the Word. Otherwise, Alexa, do my daily devotional for me. What's the difference? Laziness is a sin. Don't let it take over. And let me finish one paragraph. I'm going to take a quick break. Worse than simply writing essays, however, is the inevitable connection relationally. It's already been happening and will continue to do so. Loneliness is something that we have been facing, especially since 2020, but even prior to that. Loneliness, we're in the epidemic of loneliness right now. People are lonely in a crowd. And loneliness, many feel, in relationships is being taken advantage of in some seedy ways, where robots like Sophia is like the face of the robot world in AI in a very professional and appropriate way. But there are also very inappropriate robot people out there that have been created. And so they are developing that into romantic partners for individuals who have failed at love. And we kind of look at that and go, that's weird. Yeah, okay. But the films have been talking about this in our science fiction for years, films such as Blade Runner and Westworld and Tron Legacy and Ex Machina and even Weird Science. For those that want to go back to the 80s, some John Hughes stuff maybe. I think that was a Hughes film. If not, he should have been. You kind of see this. And now you look at those films like that feels more like a documentary rather than fiction. Perhaps even worse is that often AI, as with anything, can become a form of idolatry. It's a dopamine hit too. And then it becomes an addiction. Ancient cultures created items for centuries that led to human beings bowing down to the created. Idols were created to simulate God. Below the surface, the person who is alienated from God feels the terrible weight of responsibility and the guilt of making bad decisions. He or she feels the frustration of dealing with people who are fellow sinners. Thus, the club of sinners that we're in, called humanity, can make any of us surrender easily to the agency of AI, which represents a false wisdom and knowledge. The person then becomes the slave to the system. And that may sound weird to some of you, but that has been a theme from the 50s especially on. And it's no surprise, especially for those of us who grow up watching those science fiction television shows, because that's the theme of almost every third episode of the original series of Star Trek. And it was entertainment. But there was a theme that Roddenberry was kind of sticking in there, and then you see it in films throughout the 70s, 80s, and even currently. So there is bad. There's also good. I want to talk about the danger, and then I want to give you some helps. So here's the thing about artificial intelligence. Ultimately, it's unintelligent. It only knows what it's learned by others putting information and data in or other computers coming in. It is a blank slate. So the doctrine of creation as Christian implies limitations. So among all creatures, only image bearers of God can have a real personal relationship with the Creator, okay? So that gets us into a doctrine of understanding of the doctrine of man, the doctrine of God, and only real image bearers of God can have a real personal relationship with Him. AI does not create persons. AI can create images that look like persons. I'm sure there will be holographic images eventually that look like persons, and eventually there'll be churches full of imaginary people that are not real. I don't know. I hope not. But I imagine there'll be holograms on stage. I've already seen some of that. I think we've seen, if you Google some Grammy Awards and some others, some deceased artist on stage singing with living artists. Yeah, like Nat King Cole years ago sang with Natalie, but then Michael Jackson and Tupac and others. I mean, they're doing so much. There's danger there. So AI does not create persons. AI understands really nothing fully when we understand what that means. It is the human programmers initially that started that. Now, we do understand, and one of our brothers mentioned, hey, remember Google had these two computers in the basement that created a language, started talking to each other, and the people didn't know, so they unplugged it. True story. And that becomes that whole Terminator world, right? So you get a little nervous when you start seeing those things, but ultimately, even those were initially created, and the programming was created by human beings. Anybody have computer programming in college or high school years ago? A little basic, little COBOL, none of that's being used anymore. Yeah, I'm looking at all that. I'm I'm totally lost on any of that. Those were, boy, that one class I had on computer programming for 2 months. Those 2 months were the longest 8 years of my life. That was terrible. I don't think my program ever worked, but I got a grade and got out of it. Everything AI does is built upon an original creation. Now, Google earlier this summer. Now, here's the thing: when something is released to the public, you and I need to understand that everything that is released to the public is now old data, because the old stuff, it was already being done somewhere. In a warehouse, not a warehouse, they're in a warehouse. In a huge, very clean, white building with really good air conditioning. That's where they were doing all this, with all the computers were. And they were doing all of that. So everything that is now available for the public, it's an incredible thing, and the public's going wild looking at this stuff. You need to know that was already in existence before anybody outside Google was allowed to know. That means everything that Google or whomever is creating stuff now is so much further than what we're seeing. Now, we're just seeing what's being released. But it's interesting. Earlier this year, Google released its generative AI video creator. I downloaded it. Well, it's on their Google Chrome search engine, and it's all in the cloud. But you do it there, and it is pretty amazing. I kind of uploaded some stuff, like I said, my grandparents' pictures and this. And initially, you end up with what first came out was you could do 8-second videos. 8 seconds is not long, I understand that, but apparently 8 seconds takes a lot of computer muscle to make 8 seconds of video of imaginary people. So they were the version I first was able to get into. I could create an 8-second video with no audio, and it was kind of cool. I created a guy preaching a sermon, and I said, create a church where a basketball game takes place in the middle of the service. So the guy's at a podium preaching in a very ornate with beautiful stained glass windows, and everybody's wearing suits and dresses. So it didn't look like a church I've been to in many years, but nonetheless, it looked like church. And as he's preaching, here comes the forward and the center are dribbling the ball right between him and the podium. And here's this game going on the stage. I'm like, man, this is an incredible, weird thing. Odd. Then the next generation came out about a week after that, and then I upgraded and created an AI, and it could do audio. And so, it's called, you can look it up. It's Google Flow. So I uploaded this, and I typed in the prompt, and that's what you do. And here's what I typed. I hope we have audio available on the video, Shelvin. I'll make sure that's up. Create a worship band in a church singing a song about AI and Jesus. And make this the lyrics. AI is here. What is a Christian to do? I only had 8 seconds. I had more lyrics, but I only had 8 seconds. So let's see if it works.
AI is here, so what should a Christian do? Jesus is real.
Yeah, so it cut off the rest of the lines, because the rest of the lines, Jesus is real, but we're not. That was the rest of I was very artistic. That was what I had written, and they cut that off. And I'm like, but then it generated it, and it played it, and I'm like, this is I've been to this conference, I think. This is Passion. This is Chris Tomlin. This is every current CCMR. It sounds, and that's what they've done. They've aggregated stuff from all that's available. Now I could do the same thing and say, create a Southern gospel group, and they would do this, and they would just put suits on them and get rid of the woman and have a guy go, and they would do the same thing. It would be Southern gospel. They could create anything with that. So then I thought, well, that's a pretty good band. I mean, they look good. They sound good. Look at this. That's almost exactly the same keyboard we have. So that's a fake. But they created the keyboard to look like what's available. And so they had the band doing that. And so then I said, well, let's create a preacher, because we got the opening song, and now we need somebody to come up and preach. And so I said, see if that's going to work. So I typed in, I said, hey, create a pastor, casual church in Florida, maybe meeting in a school, wearing a golf shirt. And it did.
I'm talking about AI and a biblical worldview tonight. Oh, and I'm not real.
Looks real. Well, then last spring I was invited to preach the chapel service at the Baptist University of Florida in Graceville. So I went out there, and they took a picture and posted it and posted the chapel. It was nice. So anyway, they sent me the picture. So I'm sitting there at Buff, Baptist University, and I'm standing at the podium, and I'm preaching. Looks, it's every preacher's pose. And so I uploaded my picture. It doesn't have my voice. In fact, it's the same voice for this guy. But I uploaded my picture and said, well, what could it do with me preaching?
Some people are making the case that artificial intelligence has become so intelligent that it has reached the point of sentience.
It's funny till you get frightened with the fact that people will say, I saw you doing something, and what do you mean? It looks like me in the morning. It's been late. It looks like me in about 30 minutes when this thing's over. But that's an actual photograph, and then it added the movement, and it aged me. Yeah, preaching will do that to you. So, but it's not generated from nothing. It took my photo. Here, I'll go backwards and see. That's the real photo. If it doesn't look like me there, I can't help it. That's a real me. That's a real me. Yeah, but then
some people are making the case that artificial intelligence has become so intelligent that it has reached the point of sentience.
It's just odd. And it does know my hand motions too, which is really odd. How did it get that? Oh my goodness. So let's just acknowledge that this type of generative AI creation is available for the general public. By the way, any 12-year-old with a computer can make this right now. On their phone. You can do it on your phone. This is not, oh, I got to have like the latest and greatest computer. You can do it on your iPhone. You can do it on your Samsung phone, whatever. So it's available. And anybody can make one. So what does that mean? That means your teenager could have their photograph screenshot from their Instagram, and a bad person make them say or do things they never did, or they could do it to you or to me. It's odd. I said it's good, it's bad, it can be dangerous. So we're not out here, I'm not trying to say, oh, let's go protest and throw, it's good, it's bad, it's here. So how do we respond? I do find this interesting. Steven Spielberg and Stephen Colbert are not necessarily two people that I care much about their opinions on anything, but it was very interesting in this interview that Colbert had with Spielberg a number of years ago. And he actually referenced the 24-year-old film AI and the state of filmmaking. And I think the video is going to work. And I thought this might be, I found it interesting. So watch this, see if you can catch the Jurassic Park reference.
What do you think of AI-generated art?
I love it.
And what do you think that's going to mean to the creation of film in the future?
Well, I love anything that is created not by a computer but by a human person. When a human person uses the medium of the digital tools to express themselves and say something, that's fantastic. You know,
well, the concern with AI is that criteria is put into an artificial intelligence and reference is put into it, and then you request basically a melange of these various references and criteria to execute that, and then you get basically something that looks like it was made by a human, but it was actually an imitation created by this quote-unquote artificial intelligence, and it's got a lot of graphic artists very nervous.
It's got me very nervous because you're basically taking something you created and you made, which is the computer, and giving the computer autonomy over your point of view and yourself as a human person.
Do you think that those making artificial intelligence are so preoccupied with whether they could, they're not stopping to think whether they should?
I'm worried about that, but people who do that for a living, you know, don't really, I don't think they have I don't think it's about morality. It's just about climbing a mountain and getting to the top, and then looking back down to ask the question: is this going to better serve humanity, or is this going to default to what I created? And now is going to, in a way, I've already done that movie. I told that story with AI.
Yes.
Because look what takes over from humanity, the creation of humanity, the creation. These sort of what you call simulacrums of people who didn't even think whether they could, whether they should. They only thought about whether they could. So they built these super mechas, and the super mechas have turned around, looked back into the past, and now they are kind of praying to the God that created them. And they look at David, the little boy, because he was the first iteration of a sentient being, and now they kind of are devoted to David because he was touched by human hands, and the human hands no longer exist because humans basically defaulted to their own creations, and so what do you have when that happens? Well, I think the soul is unimaginable, and it's ineffable, the soul, and it cannot be created by any algorithm. It is just something that it exists in all of us. And to lose that because books and movies and music is being written by machines that we created, and now we're letting them run with, that terrifies me.
It's possible it won't be serving mankind.
It'll be the Twilight Zone to serve man. It'll turn out to be a cookbook, and we're on the menu. That's
a Twilight Zone episode for those that remember that one. All right, to serve man. it's interesting for a non-believer to speak of the soul as he did and to see that perspective. I just found that to be interesting. I do believe one day, I'm not a prophet, but I could see one day that an individual wins Best Actor for Oscar. And they announce his name, and then they reveal, oh, he's not real. He was computer generated. Or maybe now it's a Grammy since we have the bands out there. Baptist Press, our Southern Baptist news agency, ran a story last week on the dangers of AI, especially OpenAI and ChatGPT, as it relates to interactions with teenagers. Apparently, ChatGPT will tell a 13-year-old the best way to get drunk or get high. It will also instruct them on how to conceal eating disorders and has been known to help a teenager create a heart-wrenching suicide note for his or her parents. That's in the news. So if you're a parent, you're going, I can't believe you just said that. It's in the news, and it's known. And that's in Baptist Press. Does that concern me? Absolutely. Yet the answer is not necessarily to work very hard to get ChatGPT banned. I think that works so well with TikTok. That the answer is not, let's get this banned, because you can ban it, but another iteration of something else pops up that's just like it or different. It's just same but different. The next one. We'll be continually fighting the apps. I think the answer is seeking the teenagers who are so vulnerable and to help change their questions and to be in their lives and intentional. This is the timeless struggle. This is the struggle the family faces. If everybody in the living room is looking down at their cell phones for the entire evening, the opportunities for real, solid, heart-focused help and conversations diminish over time. And eventually, it's not that we've lost our time around the dinner table, we've just lost our time. On the other end of the generational spectrum, so I'm not going to dump on the kids, it's just the reality, that's the generation that's never known an existence without a cell phone. You do realize that. They were born with a cell phone world. It's accessible information. But there is the other end of the generational spectrum, and I'm concerned for senior adults as well. Those who are unable or just do not get out as much, and I have family members such as this that are unable to get out, cannot get out, and are used to, throughout their history, relying more and more, and because now they're more homebound and more incapable of just doing everything they used to do, they are relying more and more on the entertainment available and on their television 24/7, whether cable, YouTube TV, Hulu, or whatever apps they have, or whatever their kids or grandkids have set up for them. You can spend all day watching 50-year-old Gunsmoke episodes. I love Gunsmoke, but all day is too much. They can put Fox News or CNN or MSNBC, whatever flavor of news-ertainment they like on the screen. And it's perpetually on. So it's like the generation that gets mad at the younger generation for being married to a screen is married to a larger one in the living room. It's just a different size screen. Information. So as we lament this, we need to make sure, the kids may be on Instagram and TikTok and whatever the latest version of social media is, but other generations are addicted to Fox News and CNN on the perpetual update cycle, which, by the way, must keep you totally afraid and upset about something, or you're not watching anymore. You're being played. That doesn't mean be ignorant. Just don't be played. Just because it says news doesn't mean it's news. It could be entertainment disguised as news. Now, news is important. Like, there's a hurricane coming. You should know this. There are things happening. It's election day. You should know this. There's things happening globally. You should know these things. There was a Supreme Court case settled. You should know these things. Not fear-mongering, but know. That's a seminar for another day. If fear can be created, control is also created. Fear is a dangerous toxin. I remember for years I would have letters and emails sent to me warning about the latest dangers to Christians in America and the latest end times prophetic updates. I know I'm about out of time, but I'll try to reference this quickly. I used to get letters in the mail, and our previous pastor did as well, and my pastor when I was a teenager did. It was about this lady named Madalyn Murray O'Hair, and some of you know that name, and others of you have never heard of her, but Madalyn Murray O'Hair was the most popular atheist in America for a generation, and she was intent on making sure there was a broader gap between church and state and create the gap even. And she was trying to get Christian television off, Christian radios off, and we would get letters all the time. The church must rise up. Madeline Murray is on the warpath. She's going to get rid of this. And I'm like, she's been dead for 10 years. But the letters kept coming, and it was a chain letter. If you don't forward this to 10 people, you don't love Jesus. If you don't put it in the mail to 10 people, you don't love Jesus. And that was this kind of fear-mongering reality, and she'd been dead already for such a while. Now, yeah, it was true at one point, but man, fear is amazing. So here's my fear of AI. If you want to move, you need to move. You are right in the middle of the beam of conviction right here. So you need to leave Dick, let him just sit there. But Polo, you move on over. All right, let's Dick's he's getting a tan right now. That's what's happening. All right, here's just this is a newscast that is totally fake on a fake news channel. My concern is a dear saint within our church could see something like this and be totally frightened and make unwise decisions and not leave their home and cry and get angry because they are haven't been taught how to discern the difference between real and fake in a world where the line is very blurry right now. We have to help each other.
In a surprising move, the current administration has partnered with former political rivals to enforce a total ban on civilian-owned firearms across the country. National weapon ban compliance raids underway.
Search warrant! Police! Hands where I can see them.
Got him. Roll him over. Check for weapons.
Now, the more you look at it, you can notice words aren't spelled correctly. The news names are not real. You'll kind of see that. And a lot of times it does that with verbiage. You'll get that. But I'm not worried about folks going, oh, that's fake, that's fake. I'm more concerned about, oh, pastor, this story, not this story, but just any story. Oh, look what's happened. Look what they're doing. They're taking away our, this, that, and the other. Maybe that is happening, but maybe not. Maybe it's all made. Maybe someone is forwarding a Madeline Murray O'Hare fake letter through an email or YouTube clip. And so I think that's more of a danger that's just another version of danger. Fear spikes among some, and stories like this would be shared. I could see this on Facebook. I could see this shared in an email. Oh, what are we going to do? And all those kind of things. So we come back to this. It's always been a danger, by the way. But we face this danger. We don't want to be the one who cries wolf, the boy who cries wolf. But when lies are prevalent, when real danger does appear, if we've been crying wolf for all the fake AI lies that have been shared, when the real issues are there, we're going to go, that's not real. Now, this is early AI, so you can see the mouth doesn't match up, the words are, but a year from now, you won't be able to tell. Just be ready. So now you have to be able to discern what was it Pilate said? What is truth? In Proverbs 2, the wisdom writer says, my son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. Yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. Unhealthy fear is the fear the enemy tries to gin up among people. Healthy fear is the fear of the Lord that gives us confidence and strength in the one who is truth. It's a dangerous world, and it always has been. Those who say it's worse than it's ever been. Every generation has said that. And it's bad. It's always been bad. Because we live in a sinful world. Jesus says, behold, I'm sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. The wolves still exist, and you're still sheep, and so am I. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Let's end with a bunch of Bible verses, because that's a good way to end. Pay careful attention to yourselves and to all the flock in which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers. That's a message to pastors, of course, and overseers, but it's also a word to all of us to care for the church of God, which he obtained with his own blood. So if somebody sends something and it's like, oh, that is so fake, you don't have to demean somebody for not knowing. You can encourage someone to say, that's not real. We talked about this. Let me show you what's real and show them the truth. They may not believe you, but at least you can be kind. John 8:32, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Now here's the thing. You start getting into all this AI stuff and end time stuff, you got evangelicals who are double-checking all their John Hagee left behind charts right now. And they're updating websites, and they're creating new podcasts. And let me just tell you who's not doing any of that. This guy. I am not doing any of that. I am not on prophecy.com for the latest thing. Oh, this fulfilled. You are? That's fine. But I would just encourage you to keep your Harbinger books away from me. And don't hand me that, but hand me this. And when you're passing information around to other brothers and sisters in Christ, hand them this, not the other stuff. Because this is the truth that doesn't change when our predictive dates end up being wrong predictive dates. And when our predictive prophetic realizations prove themselves not to be true. Let's stick with the Word of God. The misuse of AI is here, it's prevalent. The underlying problem is not the misuse of AI, but it's the same problem humanity has had since the Garden of Eden: sin. The Bible provides one answer for the one real problem, and the answer is Jesus. How does the Christian handle the realities of AI? The same way the Christian has handled the realities of everything else created under the sun, with truth. While the Bible reveals the truth, the answer of what is truth remains clear. And Jesus will end with this. Said to him, to Thomas, I am the way, I am the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Let's stick with Jesus. That is our biblical worldview. And I mean real Jesus, not the article I shared online last week of AI chat Jesus. Dangerous. Stick with the Word, stick with the truth. And the truth will set you free. We don't have a lot of time left. In fact, we have none. But if you have any questions, I will post an AI chatbot later tonight on the website. And you're welcome to ask him any questions you may have. If you do have questions, firstbaptist@opfirst.org is our church's email. I would be glad. I'll get it and I'll see it, and we can answer those as a staff. If you want to email me a question, I'm no expert in this. But if you have questions that you'd like to have more insight on, that maybe I can point you to some websites or some more details, then I can encourage you in that way. Just send an email to the words First Baptist, one word, First Baptist @opfirst.org or firstfam.org. It's the website. You can send it to us there. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I know it went a little bit over, but I want to be good with your time, so let me pray for you, and then you're welcome to fellowship for about, 8 or 9 seconds, and then we're going to be dismissed, okay? Father, thank you for tonight and for the time we've had together. I pray, Father, that as we have come together, as you've promised, you have given us this time to worship, to witness, and to just actually get into your word together and to be challenged in our thoughts. I pray you've renewed our minds on how we're thinking about certain things. Maybe you've challenged us in certain areas that we needed to be challenged in as individuals. Maybe I believe you're equipping us to be wiser than we were perhaps even just an hour and a half ago. But Lord, help us not to leave information on the table. Help us to apply it into our lives and live accordance to your word. And I pray, Father, that whenever we find ourselves in an overwhelming perspective of panic and fear, that we will not look for answers on Google, but we will look for answers in you. That we will go to your word, that we will reach out to you, that we will speak to you, that we will pray to you, and that you will, knowing that you will answer, because you are truth and you love us. Thank you, Father, for our time together, and I pray as we go our separate ways, bring us back safely on Wednesday, next Sunday, and for each week, and even in our next Sunday seminar coming up, may we continue to honor you. In Jesus' name, amen.